Hello class, so welcome to your very first online at-home video. And I'm really excited about this because I've got the Elmo hooked up to my laptop and everything, and it's going to be totally awesome. But before we get started, I'm going to do something that I normally won't start videos with, and that is make sure you guys are setting up your ISNs properly. In my class, organization is so important. If you're organized, then half the battle is won for you because then all your resources are exactly the way that you need them to be in order to study and be successful. So first of all, we've done all this in class. We've organized our ISN. We've got our front pocket and our table of contents. You can see I filled my first one out here, and so should you. You should always have this filled out before you do your video. That way you don't forget about it. This is something that we're going to refer to in class all the time, so make sure you're filling out your table of contents. If you aren't sure like what to put because you haven't had my class before, remember the page number will always be on the back of your foldable, as well as the skill number. That just is the number lesson that we're on. And then your lesson title will always be after the skill number. So you can see I just plugged those things in here and we're ready to go. If you need to do that, pause the video, go do it, and then come back. Next, you should fill out your words worth knowing, and you should probably do this while you're watching or before or after you do the vocabulary video. However, if for some reason you don't do the vocabulary video, you have no excuse because the words are also on the back of your foldable. So you can see I haven't written mine in yet, but I will. So those 3 words need to go here. If you haven't watched the vocabulary video yet, please pause, go watch those, and then come back to this video because I'm going to use those words and I'm not going to take the time to explain them in this lesson. You should already know them. So now just flip ahead. In class we went through all these pages. We numbered up to 8 and then number 9. And this is going to be our very first lesson. And again, I can't stress to you guys enough, organization is important. Don't skip the labeling of your pages. We will only use these 2 pages, left and right, for one lesson. So you can flip through your lessons so easily. If you don't label what your lesson is, then you're going to be lost when you're trying to study or when you're trying to refer back to things. When your group needs you to be on the same page, if you don't label these things, you can't be on the same page. Also, another thing I like you guys to put is the date, just because you may want to know when we covered something, if you missed something, etc., etc. So everybody should put the date of when we are supposed to do this lesson. However, school hasn't started yet. I'm in my room like 2 weeks before school started. So I don't know the exact date of this lesson yet, but just make sure you put it down. So now we're done with this. Go ahead and set it to the side. You don't need it for right now. Now grab your foldable. If you don't have this, well, you kind of have to have it. So just pause and figure something out, but you can't do it right now. So you can see that we've got 6 tabs here. The top 2 are initial and terminal sides. So we're going to go over those first. Go ahead and hopefully you've got some things at home. I love to use highlighters. If you've had my class before, you know that. So I would have highlighters available, pen. However, I'm going to be writing my notes in pencil because I don't want to keep making mistakes all the time and then having to scribble them out. So you might not want to either. It's your choice. I'm not going to grade you differently based on it. So let's go ahead and get started. Initial and terminal sides of an angle. That's what we're talking about. So if you go ahead and open up here, we've got a coordinate grid. Let me zoom in a little. And we're going to go ahead and just draw an angle. So remember in the vocabulary video, I talked about the parts of an angle. There's a vertex, which is where the 2 rays that make up the angle meet. And go ahead and just draw this angle just like I have. You can see there's 2 rays and the vertex where they meet, and the angle is right here. And in the vocabulary video, I told you that if we don't know how big an angle is, we are going to be using this variable theta. So go ahead and draw that on as well. So what is the initial side of this angle we just drew? Well, the initial side is the ray where the angle begins. So write that over here. The ray where the angle begins. And I love to highlight, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. I'm going to highlight the word begins. And then I'm also going to highlight the ray where the angle begins, which is right here. That will always be your initial side. Now, if you know what the initial side is, then you can probably guess what the terminal side is going to be. Yes, if you guessed the ray where the angle ends, then you are correct. So go ahead and write that on this side. The ray where the angle ends. And again, we're going to draw an angle. I'm going to put my vertex again at the origin, and I'm going to draw my initial side in the same spot. And now we know what a terminal side is also. It's the ray where the angle ends. So this right here is the terminal side. And don't forget, we always have to draw an arrow showing the direction. We'll learn about that in a second. And also label our angle either with degrees or with theta if it's unknown. So now, handy dandy highlighter, and I'm going to highlight the terminal side. Now remember, if at any point I'm going too fast for you, just pause the video. That's the beauty of it. Now we're done. So let's go to the second portion. Standard position versus not in standard position. Well, this right here is what's important. A lot of times in math, I will show you what something is by showing you what it is not. So first I'll define standard position and we'll look at what it looks like, and then I'll show you what it doesn't look like, and it'll make sense. So, standard position. There are two things that have to happen in order for an angle to be in standard position. The first thing is the vertex, and remember vertex was defined in your words worth knowing. The vertex is at the origin. Now, hopefully you know what an origin is, but if you don't, it's at the point 0, 0. Okay, so the vertex is at the origin. I'm going to go ahead and graph that right now. There's 0, 0, there's my vertex. Now the second criteria for it to be in standard position is the initial side. Remember, initial means where it begins. The initial side lies on the positive x-axis. Now that's a lot of words to just tell you this. The initial side has to be right here to be in standard position. This is the x-axis. Here's the positive side. And as you can see up here, well, both of these have the vertex at the origin. Both of these have their initial side on the positive x-axis. Therefore, both of these are in standard position. And we can put our terminal side wherever we want. So I'm just going to put it right there. And remember, you cannot forget to label your angle and show the direction. So that's why I draw a little arrow in there and put a theta. Now, I'm going to highlight again because I love highlighting so much. The vertex is at the origin. I'm going to highlight that over here, and then I'm going to highlight the vertex. And the initial side has to lie on the positive x-axis. Highlight that right there. I love highlighting because then when you go back and look at your notes, you know what's connected to what without drawing a bunch of crazy arrows. Okay, so now we know what standard position looks like. Well, what's not standard position? The whole reason why the standard position is important is because if you just draw angles willy-nilly all over, then it's really confusing to look at. So let me give you an example. say I decide to put my vertex over here in no man's land in the second quadrant, just because I feel like it. And then I put my initial side down here. And I put my terminal side right here. Well, you have to go from initial to terminal, and then I label my theta. That is a mess to look at. So, would you rather look at that, or would you rather look at this? These, it's really easy to tell how big they are. This is less than 90 degrees. These two are greater than 90 degrees, but less than 180. We learned that from geometry, right angle, straight angle. Down here, this is kind of more obnoxious. I mean, you can figure it out, but it's just not easy to look at. So that's not standard position. And so if you want to write in this tab, I almost wrote in pen, anywhere not standard. All right, we're on to the last part, boys and girls. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I call you. Checking my time, want to make sure I'm not talking way too much. So now our last thing, this is probably one of the easiest things, positive and negative angles. So really, it's about the direction that your angle is going. So for this one, we're going to write our definition first. Okay, an angle, a positive angle is one that is generated, big word, generated in the counterclockwise direction. All right, so let's draw a positive angle. Oh, my battery's. Let's put our vertex at the origin, and then put our initial side on the positive x-axis. So now we can be sure that this is in standard position. And then it has to go in a counterclockwise direction. Counterclockwise is this way. All right, so here we go. I'm going to draw it down into the third quadrant. And bam, that's it. That is a positive angle because it goes in the counterclockwise direction. So I'm going to highlight that. Counterclockwise direction is a positive angle. Now go over here, negative angle. And this time I'm going to draw it before I write the instructions, because if this is positive, then negative has to be the other way. So I'm going to put my vertex at the origin, my initial side on the positive x-axis, so we know that it's in standard position. And I'm actually going to put my terminal side at the exact same location. However, since it's a negative angle, I'm going to go in the clockwise direction. And it's kind of interesting because both of these angles have the same initial and terminal sides, yet they are not the same angle. We will learn more about that in the next lesson, but they're not the same angle. This one's positive and this one's negative. So for our definition, we're going to say that a negative angle is generated in the clockwise direction. And here comes the highlighter. Now, if that isn't very easy to remember, like the counterclockwise and the clockwise, well, then here's an easy way to remember. Since we always put it in standard position, positive angle, you go up from the initial side. See that? We go in the up direction. Okay, and then if you over here, negative, well, if you're in standard position, you're always going to go down. Hence the words positive and negative. So positive, negative, easier to remember. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not actually going to give you any practice problems tonight. Usually I'll give you some practice problems to do on the side of your ISN, but for today I'm just going to give you the foldable, and then I'm going to do some practice with you tomorrow. So come with questions if you have any. Um, Tomorrow, that's it. One more thing I want to tell you about is at the end of the lesson, if you're still confused and I just didn't do you any justice, first of all, you can Twitter me and I might be able to help you out at the_sassy_lemon. Or you can just go to the book, and the book pages for this lesson were 439 through 441. So if you need some extra help or extra resources, then you can Twitter me or you can check out the book. Good luck. See you tomorrow.